and adaptable information on this data management lifecycle. So you'll see this wheel being used not only in this presentation, but we also have it on our webpage and these little wedges of wheels with additional pertinent information. So when we move to the collect and analyze, effective data and document management within a team or a project requires implementing processes that are practical and accessible for everyone. So one of the first things we want to do before you even collect is get authorization before your collection. So this is your approvals from animal boards, the IACUC, the IRB, any sort of IBC, hazardous material or biological agents that you need to get approval for. And if there's any patented or copywritten material that you are going to be using or using to collect data or using it as your data. Electronic notebooks, collaborative tools, those are all the things that you need to consider in your collection and creation. Documenting your steps is critical in this collect and analyze section. Consider the software you're going to use for analysis and whether those applications automatically generate information about your data files and process steps. You always want to have attention to detail, so trust but verify, and always check your data twice. In keeping your data safe, describe the data as you capture it. Organize your files, make smart choices about where you're storing your data. We're going to have some information a little bit later on about the types of storage that's available to you here at the university. So some software programs produce files that are proprietary and can only be opened within their applications. Consider saving your data in formats that can be opened by different software programs. Images that can be collected in a number of different ways, such as in-house scanning or photography, digital creation, or purchase from outside sources. Just like any data gathering process, for collection methods to be successful, researchers should really make a plan. So again, this goes back to the plan and design. You need a plan for collecting images, capturing images, analyzing and storing these images. Versioning or keeping distinct copies of a document as it changes over time is considered in the context of computer code or software, but it can be applied to data management as well. And applying version control to research files, it's a really low barrier way to document provenance or the origin of that data, how it's changed, how it's transformed, where it's moved to, where it currently lives. And know that mistakes can happen. So what's important to note here with the mistakes is a moment of decision. Are you going to report the data as is? Are you going to analyze those mistakes? And how are you going to learn from those mistakes? So we have something called a CAPA, so a corrective action, preventive action plan. It's something that we use quite often in the compliance world, but it's really helpful to adopt these types of plans within your own research project. So how are you going to correct the action and prevent the action from happening again? I saw there are a few questions. I see the chat box popping up, but unfortunately, I'm not able to read those right now. Could somebody, Judith, maybe if there are chat questions that I can answer right now?
No, it was regarding whether the slides will be available after the session.
Oh, important questions. The answer is yes. The slides will be available. Furthermore, this is really a good time to kind of plug this. We have recently revamped our Responsible Conduct of Research information webpage. So a lot of this information and several resources are available to you on that RCR page. So we will certainly provide that to you. At the end, we can, maybe Judith can put the RCR page in the chat and you can have this information there as well. So again, going back to our wheel, we look at the evaluate and archive. So storage and evaluation. At every stage of the data lifecycle, effective data storage is essential. When a project concludes, additional planning is required to prepare data for sharing and publication. So it includes long-term decisions about long-term storage. I think one of the challenges that we see here is that people say, well, I'm only going to store my data for, like a year after publication or 3 years after publication. But what are you required to store it for? And what if you want to go back to that data and look at it 10 years down the road and do a follow-up study? So how are you storing that data? Where are you keeping it? And who is going to be in charge? If the PI leaves the institution, but takes the data with them, but you're still working on the project. How is that going to be shared? What mechanisms are you going to use to share that data? These are things that you should think through and have contingency plans for. Furthermore, in the last, I would say 10 to 15 years, it's really become increasingly common for researchers to make their data available to others when you complete a study. So data sharing is really growing, mostly due to recent data policies from journals and funders. Those of you that have received an NIH or NSF funded grant in the last few years, you know that you have to sign a data sharing plan. You have to have this data management plan. We want to make sure that you are meeting the requirement of research funders who mandate these plans and open access to data, that you're complying with journal policies that require submission of supporting data sets alongside of manuscripts. Easily locate and access your own data long after the project has ended. This is what I was talking about, the long-term considerations, and allows others to replicate your research and validate your findings. So there are two different things that we really support here, or actually a few things that we really support. One is open access. Open access is the free, unrestricted online availability of scientific and scholarly research. We do have some information, again, on our newly revamped webpage about open access and open data. There are two main ways to provide open access: through open access journals and open access repositories, which archives and shares research outputs without paywalls. So we think it's really critical to the furthering of research and also validating your research to have it in open access. But now, that being said, I understand that it's not always feasible and that there are some researchers that just want to keep their data for themselves, or maybe a sponsor requires you to keep the data as proprietary. So always follow the rules of the road. If you have a sponsor that is requiring that, please make sure that you're adhering to those requirements. But if it's something that is federally funded, then most often you are required to have some sort of data sharing or open access with your data. Another thing that we strongly support and encourage is preprints. And this kind of goes to the sharing and dissemination wedge that we'll talk about in a little bit. But preprint repositories provide an opportunity to share manuscripts and working papers prior to journal publication. This past year, we hosted another research roundtable with Dr. Zach Robinson from Exercise Science. And Zach spoke on his experience using preprints. If you are interested in learning more about that, you can access our recording that we had for preprints. Where Zach spoke about data transparency and how preprints really improved his study. Finally, when we're talking about sharing, record management, data retention, data use agreements and data sharing are something that we experience quite often and we encounter. They are a little bit different. So a data use agreement is a binding contract between two organizations governing the transfer and use of data. At FAU, a PI may not enter into a data use agreement. Those must be processed through our offices here in the Division of Research, even if the study is not funded. So right now, that is the Office of Tech Transfer that is overseeing the data use agreements. So if you have questions about transferring your data or receiving data from another institution and the data custodian is requiring a DUA, please do not sign it. Go ahead and reach out to someone within the Division of Research. Like I said, it's the Office of Tech Transfer right now that's overseeing the DUAs. But we have to make sure that those specific terms are addressing applicable laws, regulations, and policies that FAU has to adhere to. And also it needs to be, again, signed by an institutional authorized signatory to be valid. So going back to the store and evaluate, FAU Research Computing does have services available, and this was one of the things that came through on the survey. They said they didn't know what was available to them, and they felt like they were kind of going at it on their own. So these are the services. If we'll just go ahead and start over to the left. I don't know what a lot of these things are because I am not a computer person, but Ryan Resnick knows what these things are. And he's the one that provided us with this information. So there are services available to you. There's also storage available, PowerScale, Cloud NAS, and software, machine learning, big data, OpenMP, MPI. So these are all the things that FAU Research Computing can do for you. They are not all free. There are some things that are without cost. However, they do cost the university money, so we do need to charge for them for a lot of these things. But again, this is not something that the Division of Research oversees, and it is the Division of Information Technology. So the FAU Research Computing will really help you and guide you. And again, this goes back to the planning and design, right? How are you going to store things? What types of networks are you going to use? What kind of software are you going to use? What sort of restrictions are there on that? So I highly encourage you to reach out to the research computing staff and speak with them when you're developing your research plan. Finally, sharing research data is crucial for turning these scientific findings into actionable knowledge, innovations, and best practices that benefit human health, and that also benefit scientific knowledge. So we talked a little bit about these with the open access, the data use agreements, scholarly products, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that I think people really want to know about now is how can I make AI work for me? So when you are using AI in data management, they can really help improve the quality of images for researchers. When you're publishing, if you find it difficult to translate concepts into visual aids, I am not very good at this at all. I rely on the kindness of others within my office to assist me with this. But AI tools can help you with this. And so it does offer some really great possibilities. There are limitations that can lead to misleading results. So proceed with caution when you are using AI in data management. We do have some things on our webpage, again, under our authorship page and our authorship policy and guidance, when to disclose in publications or presentations that you are using AI. Specifically, you should disclose when you're using AI if you have generated synthetic data or images, or if you have used AI to collect, analyze, or interpret or visualize data. So we're not saying don't do it. We're saying that you should do it ethically. And we understand that, again, the AI is something that is exciting and can really put your research forward. But it is something that we do want you to proceed with a little bit of caution and understand that even though ChatGPT 5 has, really reduced a lot of the hallucinations, they still are out there. So again, just trust but verify, going back to what I said earlier, double checking. Um, so that's it for me. If anyone has any questions about the data life cycle, I'm happy to discuss them at this time. Otherwise, I can hand it over to Gerald Horn as our library representative.
There is a question, Courtney, in the chat
Yeah.
regarding, does the Division of Research have staff that can review and provide feedback on draft data management plans?
Yes, we do. So that is actually Alice Neal. So Alice and Steve Gregg are part of the research development office. So they will assist you with your editing. They can find resources for you and certainly check with sponsor requirements on data management plans. Alice, is there anything else you want to?
Yes, absolutely. So we're available to help researchers across the university with their proposals. That's what we do. We help to provide feedback on proposal narratives and some of the supplementary documents, generally not those that encompass budget, but data management would be one of those documents that we can provide feedback on. Just to let you know that on our Office Canvas site, which can be accessed through our website, we have a kind of boilerplate text data management plan. And that was compiled in collaboration with the Office of Research Integrity, the Office of Information Technology. It is very general because different sponsors require different components for data management plans. And so absolutely what Courtney said is if we're going to review a data management plan for a grant proposal, we would look at that funding opportunity and see what that funding opportunity requires. But if you want as a starting point, on our Canvas site, we do have some kind of boilerplate text that can be used to populate some of the sections, and it'll help at least to kind of get you started. And within our office, we do assist researchers according to college. We have different points of contact for different colleges. And so I think Dr. Merlin, for you are in College of Science, so Steve Gregg would help you. But feel free to reach out to our office regardless, and we can assist. Okay. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you. And also, I believe Gerald is going to provide some more information on successful data management plans and where to access those. So that's a great segue. All right, Gerald, take it away.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Um, as I was introduced, I am Jarell Horn, and I'm with the library. And just to give you a little bit of context, libraries in general have been working with data management since the first libraries were founded. So we're talking at least 5,000 years here. That's what libraries do. We manage data, books, tablets, if you're going back early enough. These are collections of data. And we came up with the idea of metadata and collecting things, not just collecting things, but organizing them and creating patterns and links. So this is our bread and butter. Just to give a little more context, area that's also been managing data since almost the very beginning is industry, finance. Where are those dollars going? What do the customers want? You can only know that by managing your data and keeping it and analyzing it. So we've had a lot of experience for this. Now, to get to what I really wanted to share, if I'm going to share my screen just a moment. So if I can turn on the sharing, I wanted to show you a resource that I put together to help you with data management and all of the aspects of it and what's all involved. If someone can turn on the sharing.
I think I gave you access.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Make sure there. All right, this is located on the library website, and I'll show you really quick later how you can find it. But this is a collection of resources that I put together on the data management life cycle, which goes together with the data life cycle. And you can see that right here from the planning, collecting, processing, preserving, sharing, and reusing that are all part of that life cycle. So to start with, just to clarify what data management is, it's defined as the organization, storage, access, and preservation of data in its various forms. That includes what will be done with the data once a project is completed and how it may be shared and stored. There is an organization called the Data Management Association International. They have more of a business focus, but the basics are still the same, and they define it as the development, execution, and supervision of plans, policies, programs, and practices that deliver, control, protect, and enhance the value of data and information assets throughout the life cycles. A lot of big words there, but just to drill it down to really what it's all about. It's about documenting everything you do from the beginning to the end, realizing that it never really ends. It always goes back to the beginning, such that if someone were to come along, say 50 years later, and have no clue who you are or what you did, they could repeat everything you did and know where everything was and how it was done and what was done in every single incidence. That reproducibility, so that everything you did can be redone and built upon. And that is the core of data management and why it's so important. So anyway, with this resource, one of the things that I've done is I've created pages for each of these parts. This is a cute video that talks about data management gone wrong. It's kind of fun, but it can tell you what actually ends up happening a lot of times, unfortunately. And in here are not just information, but links to resources to help you with your data management and with the various parts of it. So for example, this DMP Assistant, it's a tool to help you put together your plan. It includes a lot of instruction and examples for putting your plan together. The DMP tool, as was already mentioned, is another great tool as well. Now, one thing that was talked about was this library of data management plans. That is this McMaster's University database. This is a growing database that was started a while back where people submit their successful data management plans for others to learn from and use as templates. And it's organized by subject, and it's a pretty amazing resource. So you can go there and find your subject and what people have done with those data management plans to get an idea of what it is that you need to do. One of the other things I have in there is talking about the different parts of a data management plan. For example, a README doc text file that includes all of the definitions and instructions and what it is and where it is and how it's stored, what software was used, all of that information for what is going on with your data. And that's actually separate from the metadata and the other parts of the data management plan. We even have a data management checklist that was developed just to make sure that you don't skip everything, that you ask all the right questions. Or as the phrase goes, counting the cost. You want to know everything that's going on before you start, so you make sure that everything is covered and you don't end up with any unpleasant surprises as you're going along. I mean, you'd rather be doing the fun stuff, which is the research. You don't want to be really dealing with all of the admin stuff. And this was actually developed by the Florida Institute of Technology, and they've allowed us to use this with us. So we like to share a lot of things to make things easier. We have other information here talking about collecting data, collecting the data sets and tools, processing it, even analyzing it. Examples of talking about various software tools, things that can be, that you need to ask. And all of this is growing as we get more information to input into here. The next step that we talked about was data repositories. And here I just want to give a little bit more of an extension on that. Data repositories are collections of that data, not just while you're working with it, but once you're done with it. And there's actually 3 general qualities to a data repository. They can be public or private. Like, for example, the data repository that a corporation like American Express would use for all of its cardholder data. Generalist, which would use pretty much everything. So in other words, our data set, repository here at FAU that OIT has, and the library also has a repository, which I'll get into in a minute, are more generalist because we take any kind of data that FAU generates, or specialist, and those are for very specific kinds of data. For example, one repository called iMport is specifically for immunology related data. And then there's institutional repositories. Ours would be institutional. We only take data that's generated by FAU, or open. In other words, they take data that anybody generates as long as it meets their criteria. Now, when we get other terms you may hear getting into industry are things like data lakes, which are huge repositories of data. This is getting into AI and the big data and big data analysis that AI is involved with, as well as the more traditional kinds of data repositories. The data repository and specifically, sorry, that we have, and I can show you very briefly, is called Digital Commons that we just launched. It's a soft launch, so we haven't launched it specifically, but this is what it looks like. And one of the things that it allows you to do is not just store your research papers and your information, as well as your data sets. And that's something else to look at with a data repository, and that we can help you with is questions like, how big does the data set need to be? Some of these data sets can get huge. What kinds of files do you handle? What do I need to do to make the data storable? For example, there's a big repository called Vivly, which is specifically for human data, and they require that data to be properly anonymized and otherwise processed because of the kind of data that they work with. But besides all of the, being able to store your research and data in this repository, and we do plan to be rolling it out to the university within just the next few months. We're finishing up to make sure everything's good. This is something I want to point out with it, that it also enables collaboration. And that's another very important part of data management, is that collaboration is allowing your research to be built upon, to not just for you to go back and look at what you did, but for others to take it and talk to you and build it and create new research. This is actually showing where people from around the world are accessing what we've stored here in this repository so far, which, as I said, because it's beginning, there's not a lot, but they're already been looking at it. Getting back to the resource guide, then we also have information on data sharing that was talked about, including various principles like the FAIR guiding principles on how to make your data findable, accessible, interoperable, say that 3 times fast. That's that collaboration part, and reusable. Because again, we want to build on data. We don't want to keep it to ourselves and nobody ever sees it again. I mean, we in libraries still mourn the burning of the Library of Alexandria because that destroyed so much knowledge that could have been built upon. And that's not something we want to keep doing. We also have resources, links to resources on sharing data and even indigenous data. Just because we want to store data and work with it in a particular way doesn't mean that's always the way that you want to work on it. Like, for example, with indigenous data, one of the kinds of metadata that you want to get in there is who is even allowed to look at it because of how their culture handles certain objects. So these are all things that we're trying to get together to help you with. And just as the Division of Research has, fantastic people to help you with your data management plans, that's something we can also do as well. And we're trying to work more with the Division of Research to make sure you get what you need. So again, you can go back to the fun part, which is doing the research. As a matter of fact, one of the things that's starting to become more popular with other of the R1 universities is what's called an embedded librarian. Just like you might have an embedded statistician for helping you analyze your data, the embedded librarian helps you with the data management part, the generating of the metadata, the organizing of it, the creating the patterns, everything that you need to make sure that everything is covered in your research and reproducible and accessible and findable and buildable, that someone else can build upon it. And finally, we also have information on reusing here, various resources, especially getting back to a lot of the requirements that are coming out now from the government and the National Institute of Health. So we're getting close to the time. So does anyone have any questions on this information that we have and what we've been doing?
I don't have a question, but I do just want to say that I had no idea before you started coming to research roundtables and we started talking. I had no idea that any of this existed. And, I mean, granted, I haven't been at this institution for very long. It's only been 4 years, but I didn't know that all of these resources were here. And I don't know how many people on the meeting knew about this. So I just want to say, first of all, thank you for putting all of this together. It's an extraordinarily huge lift. You've done a tremendous job of organizing it and just making it available for everyone. And thank you for coming and presenting it to us and just opening the door because, like I said, I had no idea this was even here. But please,
This is
everyone,
something
ask
that's
questions. Yeah.
Yeah, this is something that's become very big with libraries because, as I said, this is what we do. And what we want to do is get out there to help the researchers shine,
Mm.
to be able to do what they need to do without having to handle all of this other stuff. And yes, AI is good, it's a great tool, but it can't handle all of this very well. It keeps kind of going on its own path. So that's part of what we're here to do is to help you with all of this other parts of the information so that your research is not just successful, but that it advances the knowledge that we have and doesn't just get stored away somewhere or even destroyed.
Yeah, like I said, I love it. I think it's great. You've done so much more than I could have known to do. Um, so know that it's very much appreciated. If
Oh, you're
anyone has
welcome.
questions for our librarian, or for Alice, sorry, Alice, I'm picking on you here, or anyone in research integrity, please, ask away.
Gerald, who should the researchers reach out to? Should they email you or should they contact the general library email?
They can do either one. They can contact me directly, or they can contact any of the other librarians. We all collaborate and work with each other, not just here, but with other libraries even, to make sure that you would get the help and information that you need. For example, when I was first just getting into this, I actually collaborated with and was mentored by a fantastic librarian out of Rutgers University. And or not Rutgers, I'm sorry, Brown University in Rhode Island. Amazing gentleman that helped me with this. And this has only grown because we want to make sure that research is successful. That, it doesn't just look good for the research, it looks good for us because this is what we do. And then it means that we move knowledge along. And that is something that is really at the core of what it means to be a librarian is what can we do to make knowledge grow, to help it grow.
Awesome. Thank you.
And if I may, what you were saying earlier, there's a lot of changes, with regulations or data security requirements that have been coming out within the past, 6 months or even before that. One I'm thinking of specifically that our office has been contending with is the bulk data rule from the DOJ. And who can have access to bulk data. Specifically, again, what Elisa and I have been contending with is how to ensure that FAU is complying with the bulk data rule as it relates to all of us. And for those of you that are not familiar, All of Us is an NIH-supported data repository with well over 1 million people participating at this point. And there's 3 different tiers of access. You can access just basic information, or you can access genomic data at a controlled tiered level. So those are the sorts of things that we can we're learning with you so we can help navigate. We don't have all the answers, but know that there are people here within Division of Research, within the library system, that can certainly assist you with accessing those sorts of data repositories, trying to navigate your way or shepherd you through accessing those data repositories and the types of questions, contingencies, or security things that you need to put in your data management plan or your funding application. So it's all new, and just know that we're all in the same boat. There's constantly changing rules. Like I said, most recently with that respect to data security and data access. So we're trying to do what we can and get the answers for you and work with you to address those issues. So Amy has a question. If I have a data set that's not an appropriate place to deposit the data, and I need to make it available because it's a data grant, do we have a data repository to post the data and give them a DOI? So I do not know the answer to that. That is actually probably going to be something for the research computing and for Ryan Resnick. That's going to be a Ryan Resnick question, unless if anyone from Division of Research knows the answer to that. So Amy, I'm sorry, I do not have an answer for you right now, but I do have a person that would know the answer. And like I said, that's Ryan. Do you want us to put his contact information in the chat? Yes, okay, great. Sounds good. I got you.
Jarrell had mentioned a data repository. Would that one be appropriate or not?
It depends on the kind of data, what various universities are doing and institutions are doing, because there's so many different kinds of data and the requirements vary so much, is often they will choose what kinds of data that they will allow have repositories for in-house. For instance, Brown did this, but then they'll also work with repositories outside of the institution for more specific kinds. I mentioned Vivly, for instance, which is one of the bigger depositories for human-related data. And it's just because of all the different requirements, they vary so much. So our repository can handle some kinds of data. It's an open access repository. So the data would need to be able to be open access, although we can also do embargoes with that. But as I said, it would depend on the kind of data as to what is being required. And there's many specialist data repositories as well that even if you aren't, you could use one of ours, you may want to use a specialist one. Like, for example, GitHub is the specialist for software data, and software programming. And that's because the repository is created and set up to handle that data much better than a more generalist repository might be able to. So just because we could handle it, that may not be the best option. And that's one of the things that that the consultants with the Division of Research or that we can help you work out is, where is the best place for my data? And don't think you have to put everything in the same place. You don't. As long as you've got it documented, what's where and what's required to access it. You can have it in 3 or 4 different repositories if you need to, as long as you've got it documented so that if someone goes to one, they can find all of them. And that's the key thing with the data management plan. It also gives you that kind of flexibility.
Other questions that you have about data management just overall or here specifically? Sheesh, can everyone speak up at once?
Hello, I have a question.
Yes.
Hi. So I work with College of Medicine with the graduate fellows, and if we have them doing an independent project, would they be able to? Because I think we use REDCap, is what I've heard for data collection. That's correct?
Yes, probably.
Yeah, because I haven't had anything come up as of yet, but we were looking at doing an investigator-initiated study, and then we'd have to collect our own data. And so I was looking at REDCap previously. Is there any kind of, that's where I would, as far as I know, that's where I would store patient data if we were to do something like data collection with patients.
Yeah, you can store patient data in REDCap because it is HIPAA compliant. And that's totally fine. It's free to use for FAU affiliates. So we do have that agreement with NIH, or actually Vanderbilt University, that created it. So REDCap is a great tool to use for consenting, collecting identifiable PHI or PII data. Like I said, it's very secure. However, if you want to extract that data out of REDCap, what I would recommend, like let's say that you're leaving the institution or someone else is leaving the institution, you do want to make sure that you're getting that data out of REDCap and scrubbing it to maybe import it into an Excel file or some other type of file that you can take with you. So just having that plan long term about what you're going to do with the data after the fact, after the research is over, and after you've collected it, that's really kind of what we want you to consider. So, like I said, REDCap is totally fine. We support it. I would say probably 75% of people that are doing research at this institution, human subjects research, at least, are using REDCap.
Yeah, in general, data collection tools and services are really not meant for long-term storage.
Mhm.
They're meant for storage while you're working on the project, but eventually the project's going to end and you need to know what to do with it then. And that's what these repositories are there for, is for you to move the data to its more permanent home so that it is now available for curation and available for others to use and build on the work that you've done. And that's kind of like the next step. And so that's part of the data management plan, is thinking about not just where am I keeping it while I'm working on it, but where am I going to keep it for the long term, for the next 50 years, 70 years, whatever that period needs to be for that data. And how is it going to be kept safe, and how is it going to be curated and managed and made available for a researcher, say 10, 15 years down the line, to be able to access, because these programs are constantly changing. I can guarantee, 10 years from now, REDCap probably is going to be a totally different program just because of the way software changes. So these repositories are a separate thing, but an integral part of any data management plan for that reason.
Hey, Dr. Marlin, you had a question.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to share a perspective that I didn't really hear reflected today, which is, it's wonderful if we have a plan, a linear plan where these are the processes we're going to go through and collect the data, and this is what's going to result. My experience may be unique, but I work with GIS. A lot of times things don't go according to plan. I'm going back, I'm getting a new data source, I'm doing a new kind of analysis that I didn't anticipate doing. It's not a linear, in my experience, often a linear process. It's an iterative process. And there's continual revisions to the shape of the data, the sources of the data, the analysis techniques. It rarely goes exactly according to plan. And so I didn't really hear any of that realistically reflected in the discussions. I think it's really important maybe to have some researchers on the presenting team, in addition to, Department of Research staff, because again, I didn't see my experience of handling data and wrangling data and how chaotic it can be reflected in today's presentations.
Well, this is why it's a roundtable. So we welcome your experience, and you're right. I mean, you can have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan Q, but sometimes things just go sideways. And I think what it's at the crux is, you plan for things to go sideways a little bit sometimes. You
So, I mean,
understand that everything isn't going to be linear. You're right.
specifically, the file naming, the version control,
Yeah.
I could use a lot of advice on that, because things just, I keep having different iterations, different versions of the data, unexpected things happen. I would love guidance on that.
And that's actually something we can help you with, because we've gone through it. You don't want to know how many times our cataloging system in the history of libraries has had to be updated and changed and expanded and created, assuming that things are going to come out we can't even think about. And a good data management plan actually incorporates that kind of living into it. The key thing is just documenting it. So everything goes out the window and you end up having to go back and get new data, and it's changed. Now you're using a whole different file structure and a whole different cataloging system. That's okay. You just want to make sure that it's documented. And that's something we have a lot of experience with. And so that's something we can actually help you with in the library, is how to structure things so you've got that room and got that ability for that plan to change and grow as your research changes and grows. And data plans are not meant to be a static document, not meant to be something like, well, it's done, I have to do it, and I got no choice. It's meant to grow with you so that whatever happens, it can handle. And at the end, you've got everything documented, and somebody coming along can go through all those same frustrations you did. And all of those same joys of discovery that you did. and maybe find some new things along the way.
Also, thank you for volunteering to speak at our next research roundtable, Dr. Merlin. I appreciate it. No, but that's absolutely right. It is dynamic, and things are not always going to go exactly to plan, but we have something here that we call a note to file. We use a note to file for all sorts of things, especially when we were adopting our new novolution system. I created so many notes to file because how we had to change and adapt and review things and document things. Even in the compliance office, we know that, we're going to have to be nimble and really just kind of go with what we are faced with at that point in time. But you're right, so long as you document it and you have a trail, or as Donna likes to say, what is your story? Tell the story. How do I follow it? That's really, kind of important. So I see that we are at the top of the hour. So I would like to thank everyone for attending, and especially our guest speaker today, Jarrell Horns. So thank you so much. I certainly appreciate it. And Dr. Merlin, again, thank you for volunteering for our next research roundtable. Don't think I won't be reaching out. But thank you, everyone. Please take a moment to review our revised Responsible Conduct of Research webpage. It has a lot of valuable information. Also, of course, go to the library data management page. It has so much, a tsunami of information. Really, really well done, well thought out, and of course, as a librarian, very well organized. So we appreciate it and appreciate you. We'll see you all next month when we talk about authorship and our new and helpful authorship policy and guidance documents. So we will see you next month. Happy new semester, everyone. Okay, bye-bye.